Hi, and welcome back once again to Point Serve. Point Serve is the first podcast of Cross Point Church in Beckley, West Virginia. My name is Vondie, and I am the lead pastor here at Cross Point. And we want to let you know what Point Serve hopes to accomplish for you. Wherever you lead, whether it's in a sacred space or in a secular space, whether it's in the church or in the marketplace, we want to do our very best to pour into you ways that you can be a better leader wherever God has placed you. And in that process, we believe that God can help you grow and mature and be much more effective with the people that you lead. And so with that today, we're going to begin a two-part series that will take place here in October and also in November. And it's how to lead people beyond stagnation. When things are flat. In church life, what we use when a church has kind of reached a stagnant place, they call it a plateau. Basically, it's reached its peak and it's kind of stopped at that point. And so when you and I begin to think about plateauing in the organizations where we live, what does that look like? I can tell you that in church life, there are some reasons that churches hit a plateau. I can also tell you in other organizations, there are reasons that they hit a plateau. A lot of times in church life, there are generational shifts that take place. When that first generation that started the church begins to drift off of the scene and the next generation comes on, that's called St. John's syndrome. And St. John's syndrome happens when that second generation, say the kids of the people that started the church, they want to keep it like they think it used to be. They want to keep it the same. They don't want things to change. And so that leads a church into a stagnant moment. I believe that also happens in the lives of other organizations when the founder retires, when they step off the scene. We've seen this happen in Apple. We've seen it happen in other companies as well. When the founder steps off the scene, new people take over the reins of the leadership, and things sometimes go well, but sometimes they don't. And when they don't, that organization plateaus. So what can a leader do in an organization that is plateaued? What is it that you can do when something is stagnant that you are called to lead? Well, I think there's some things that we can share, and I've got 5 things for you today, and then we'll have 5 things in November. But the first thing that I want you to understand is that some places it is easier to lead than in others. There are some churches that are easier to pastor than others. There are some churches that are extremely difficult. I know here at Cross Point, prior to my coming, there were some very strong personalities who had been a part of the congregation for a long time. And they had either passed away or they had moved away by the time that I came. And had those strong personalities still be in play, I don't know if Crosspoint would be where it is today. But those strong personalities made it very difficult to pastor this congregation. I remember there was one person who was extremely opinionated, and that was okay. But this person was so opinionated that they would even write down for pastors prior to my coming how many times they butchered the English language, how many times their noun-verb agreement wasn't quite right. And they would share that with the pastor as they left. And they would also say mean things to other congregants. When I was a youth pastor at another church here in the United States, I knew of a person who said that they wanted to get better and not be so abrasive and so critical, and would be having a tough conversation with someone in the parking lot before they left after making the statement. So please understand, some congregations, some organizations are easier to lead than others, and we need to recognize that. Not every place is the same. Not everything that works in church A will work in church B. Not everything that works in organization A will work in organization B. We need to understand that. And so when we do, that gives us a much better understanding of what maybe has caused the plateauing and the stagnation. Also, we have to understand that there are some people who are better and more gifted at leading than others. One person called it the pastoral gift. And they said if a particular individual who has this gift was in the middle of the Sahara Desert, they could grow a church in that place. And I'll agree that there are some people who have more ability naturally than other people. And we need to recognize that. We need to pay attention to that, but we also need to understand that God gifts different leaders with different gifts, I believe, for different places. I believe that God gifts pastors and lay leaders and organizational leaders gifts that are needed in the places where they find themselves. And so with that, not everybody is going to lead the same way. That's why you can never play the comparison game. Because no two places are alike. No two places are exact. And no two individuals who lead in those places are the same. There are principles that we can apply, but we need to understand that giftedness is different for different people. So, what can I do if I'm at a place that has plateaued, if I'm at a place that has stagnated? What can I do as the leader of that place to maybe help it, maybe draw more out of the community? What can I do at that moment? Well, if your organization, if your congregation has chosen to be plateaued, don't join in. Just say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be a part of that. You say, well, Vondie, how do I do that? Well, there are some congregations that literally are ailing as far as the health of the congregation is concerned. And there are some places where I have watched them get to the place of almost self-destruction. And so pastors who have been there say, what do I do about that? And I said, choose not to participate. I mean, those unhappy members that are there, those unhappy people who are there, if they're disgruntled and all of the things, choose not to operate that way. Choose not to be that way. When I first came to Crosspoint, we did have one or two of that old guard that I talked about a moment ago who were still around, and many of them were extremely negative. They were extremely negative to where the church was when I came, and then as the church began to grow, they also were negative at those moments also. And I had a choice to make at that moment. Would I become like that, or would I just choose not to join in? And I chose not to join in. I chose not to get disgruntled. I chose not to allow the personal issues that those folks may have had with some of my predecessors not to be my issues. And so when I made that choice, it was amazing how much my perception and my attitude changed. It was amazing how much of a difference it made inside of me as the leader, so that I was not going to participate that way. I just chose not to do it. And one of the things that I noticed is that the other folks in the life of the church noticed the change in me, and those that wanted to remain disgruntled, while they were to some degree, they also kind of shifted a little bit. As much as they were capable of shifting, they were able to move a little bit that way. And so when I looked at the plateau, I looked at the stagnation, I looked at the situation that was here in the life of the church, I decided that what I wanted to see happen, if nobody else joined in, I was going to move forward. I was going to do it. When I would call for a time for people to go visit, if I was the only one that showed up, I went and visited. If I handed out to leaders in the life of the church, people that I requested for them to call, and they didn't call their folks, I didn't draw attention to it. I did not get angry with them. I just made sure that the folks that were on that list got a contact from me. And so when I was doing those things, I made sure that Whatever somebody else's problem was, it was not going to be mine. I remember one of the leaders said that they would never attend a small group, a Sunday school class back in those days, said they would never attend that because somebody disagreed with them in one of the classes. And I thought, well, okay. If that's your choice, then you're the one that's going to miss out on all the things that you could experience in that small group, and those people would be able to get to know you better and you them, but you chose not to do that. You see, if you find yourself at a stagnation place, choose not to join that. Choose not to let someone else's disgruntled attitude become yours. And that's difficult. That takes work. That takes leadership, ladies and gentlemen. It takes leadership so that you and I do not fall into the issues and the struggles and the problems and the stagnation that can happen to congregations, that can happen to any organization. Each and every one of us can wrestle with those stagnation problems. And we will, at some point, we will have to deal with stagnation issues. But here's what I know. Stagnation is only allowed to exist when no new inputs come in. When nothing new pours in, stagnation can survive. But when new things come in, stagnation no longer can stay as it is. All it can try to do is stop the new inputs, or it can give way to something fresh. Just like a pond, when the drought season hits and it begins to get stagnant on top, the only thing that changes that is fresh water coming in. And that's what happens for congregations. That's what happens for organizations. Is when leaders go into those places recognizing how things are, not ignoring it, not saying it doesn't exist, but recognizing how things are, but choosing not to join in. And if nobody else does it, I'll do it. If nobody else steps up, I'll make sure it happens. And ladies and gentlemen, that type of attitude, that type of grit, that type of work, God has always honored, and I think He will. So if you find yourself in a place like that, between now and November, choose not to join that. The things you want to see happen, start doing it yourself. And then in 6 months, invite somebody to go with you, and invite somebody to be a part of something that's bigger than what it is right now. Thank you so much for tuning in to Point Serve here in October. Again, my name's Vondie. I am the lead pastor here at Crosspoint Church in Beckley, West Virginia. This program is produced by Aaron Hampton. Makeup is by Brittany Ferguson. And we thank you so much for tuning in today. Do us a great big favor. Hit the like button. Make sure that you share this podcast with a friend. That's the only way that we can get it out to a wider audience so that more people can experience what Point Serve is all about. And again, my name's Vondie. Thank you so much for tuning in to Point Serve here in October. Have a great rest of the day.